So this will be recorded and posted to Golden Eagle's website. And before we get started, there are 2 field trips for this. The one to Avamore is full. I'm not surprised since it's the closer and shorter one. We still have 5 slots available for the Garden Valley trip. The Garden Valley is a really cool place. So if you are willing to go out for a day, I highly recommend it. Okay, and 7 o'clock, in the interest of time, I will go ahead and get the program started. I will be trying to monitor the chat box and answer your questions, although there should be time for questions afterwards. The program is scheduled to run for an hour and a half. If it ends sooner than that, that's fine too. Hopefully it won't run over. So welcome to this presentation on identifying warblers found in Southwest Idaho. I'll be covering some basics on warbler identification, understanding sonograms, and then specific warblers and their songs. There will be a quiz at the end, but the quiz will not cover the songs, as that is too much to expect that this brief lesson will allow you to memorize the songs of so many birds in such a short period of time. And you don't have to actually take the quiz, it's more for your information. Is there anybody in the participants who is visually impaired? Because that will affect my presentation. Doesn't look like it. If you are, please indicate so in the chat box. Hopefully I will do a decent job of describing things anyway, so it won't be an issue. Anyway, so in Southwest Idaho, we have 10 species of warblers that occur during breeding and 1 species that until very recently was grouped with the warblers. Since 2019, however, the yellow-breasted chat was moved into its own family and genus. But since the older field guides include the chat with the warblers, I'll go ahead and cover it in this presentation. Note that several other species of warblers occur irregularly in our area, primarily during migration. I will not be covering those species, nor will I cover species found solely in eastern and northern Idaho. So let's get started with some field marks, what to look for to help you identify warblers. The first is contrast in color. What parts of the bird stand out from other parts due to differences in the color or the hue? High contrast birds have bold markings and colors, while low contrast birds appear to be drab or plain. Tonal contrast occurs where adjacent areas of basically the same color differ in how bright or dark they are. Color contrast is where different colors intersect. And general contrast refers to how the different body parts differ in their contrast, such as differences between the lower body and the upper body and wings. These photos illustrate differences in contrast. Not all of these species will be covered today, but they do illustrate the concepts. So the bird in the upper left, an orange-crowned warbler, shows low contrast in both tone and color, while the American redstart in the upper right shows high contrast in tone and color. Note that the orange-crowned warbler appears drab, while the redstart appears bold. The yellow warbler in the lower left shows low contrast, but bright, bold color. The black-throated gray warbler in the lower right shows high contrast between black and white with only tiny spots of yellow above the lores. Another aspect of contrasting color is where the contrasting color occurs. Birds with hoods have head colors that contrast with body color. Hoods cover the entire head and can extend into the breast. Wing bars are light or white areas in the folded wing and can really stand out or be more subtle. Differences in facial contrast can help separate otherwise similar looking species. And again, these contrasts can be bold or subtle. And finally, what parts of the bird are colored as opposed to black and white? Many, but not all warblers have yellow somewhere in their bodies. A few species have red, but not yellow. And the yellow coloring ranges from the entire body to small spots. The McGillivray's warbler in the upper left has a hood with wing bars. The Townsend's warbler in the upper right has high contrast in the colors of the face and bold wing bars. The Wilson's warbler in the bottom has subtle variation in the yellow color between the back and wings and the face and undersides, but high contrast between the black cap and the rest of the body. So can everybody hear the audio? Okay. Michelle, is it working for you now? Okay, good. As you gain experience in identifying warblers, you'll start to notice differences in size, shape, habitat, and behavior that help distinguish them from other songbirds. Warblers are generally small, active birds, typically ranging from 4.5 to 5.5 inches long. So there's not a lot of size variation. Most are slim with pointed bills, but there are subtle differences between warbler species. As for habitat, pay attention to what elevation you're at when you see the bird, what plant community it is in, and how high or low in the vegetation you typically see it during the breeding season. During migration, warblers can appear in atypical habitats, particularly after a storm, so be aware of that. Lastly, pay attention to the bird's behavior. Does it typically occur on or near the ground? Does it walk or hop? Can it creep along tree trunks? Does it flash or flick its wings and tail? Does it pump the tail up and down or wag it from side to side? Is it usually alone or in pairs, or is it usually in flocks? During active breeding, the birds are usually alone or in pairs and sometimes seen in family groups. Outside of breeding, the bird may still be alone, only in small groups, or it may flock up. Now let's start looking at some more specific body parts, beginning with the face. Look for cheek patches, masks, markings around the eye, markings on the lores, superciliums, bands above the eye, and top of head markings. Pay attention to bill size and any markings on throats. Throat markings are more commonly seen in male birds than female birds. So the Townsend's warbler in the upper left has a prominent cheek patch, while the common yellowthroat in the upper middle has a mask. The black-throated gray warbler in the upper right has a spot just above the lores, and the lores are the area between the eye and the bill. The Nashville warbler in the lower left has a complete eye ring, while the McGillivray's warbler in the lower right has eye arcs, which is a partial eye ring that looks very distinctive. The two birds in the upper left have superciliums. The yellow-rumped warbler has a high contrast supercilium, while the orange-crowned warbler has a very subtle supercilium that is easy to miss. The yellow warbler that I'm showing here is the myrtle subspecies, which we sometimes get. Never see very many of them, but they do appear fairly regularly. The two birds on the lower left illustrate differences in bill size. The McGilvery's warbler has a long, heavy bill, while the orange-crowned warbler has a short, fine bill. The Wilson's warbler in the upper right has a top-ahead marking, while the yellow-rumped warbler in the lower right has a bold yellow throat. Next, we need to look at the body. Do you see streaking anywhere on the undersides? Where is the color in the bird? Does the rump stand out in any way? Do you see any wing bars? These birds illustrate subtle, bold, and colorful streaks. The orange-crowned warbler on the upper left has very subtle streaks in the breast and sides that can be easy to miss, while the Townsend's warbler in the upper right has very obvious streaks, with some of them in the yellow breast and some on the white flanks. The yellow warbler in the bottom has red streaks on a yellow body. The Nashville warbler in the upper left illustrates a low contrast between the back and wing. The back is gray, while the wing has hints of yellow. The Townsend's warbler in the upper right illustrates a more moderate contrast between the back and wings. In this case, the back includes yellow tones, while the wing is basically black and white. The yellow-rumped warbler on the bottom has a prominent rump patch. Finally, let's look at a wing bar. Wing bars are seen on the folded wing. Several of our warblers do not have wing bars, but a few do. A wing bar is a thin white or light line along the tips of the median or secondary coverts. The upper wing bar is on the median coverts, while the lower wing bar is on the secondary coverts. Coverts are feathers that cover the bases of other feathers where they attach to the wing. The Townsend's warbler in the upper left, yellow-rumped warbler on the lower left, and black-throated gray warbler on the right have two wing bars. Wing bars on the yellow-rumped warbler are sometimes more obvious in the female than in the male. Now let's look at the undertail. Often you'll find yourself looking up at the underside of a warbler, leading to what is known as warbler neck, as your neck gets tired from looking up for a long time. In looking up, what you mostly see are the undertail coverts and the undertail itself. You also need to see if the bird moves its tail in a particular manner. Undertails and undertail coverts can be colored, white, or marked in some way. The undertail and undertail coverts can be the same color, often yellow or white in warblers. The yellow warbler in the upper left has both a yellow undertail and undertail coverts. The undertail and undertail coverts can be different colors too. So the orange-crowned warbler in the lower left has a gray undertail and yellow undertail coverts. You know that yellow is subtle. The undertail can also be marked. The yellow-rumped warbler on the right has white undertail coverts and a blackish undertail with large white spots. The undertail itself can be diagnostic too. Is it gray, white, or colored? Most colored tails match the color of the undertail coverts. Undertails can be spotted either in the center or towards the tip. And in some species, the tail has a white or colored base and a dark tip. So having covered some of the parts of the bird to look at, we're going to cover what to listen to in warbler song. So a good way to study bird songs is to study the sonogram, also known as a spectrogram of the bird song. Technically, a sonogram is in grayscale, while a spectrogram is in color, but these terms can be used interchangeably. I'll be showing sonograms since these are easier to find. One of the challenges in understanding warbler song is that we do not have a common vocabulary for bird sounds, unlike for bird body parts. Different books that discuss bird sounds use different definitions for sounds like warbles. In his presentation, I'll be using the scheme set out by Nathan Peplow to describe the types of sounds and songs of the warblers in detail. So let's start with what a sonogram looks like. The x-axis of a sonogram is time in seconds, or more commonly in tenths of a second. The x-axis is the frequency of the vocalization in kilohertz. The thinner the line, the softer the sound, while the thicker the line, the louder the sound. Note that bird sounds can be higher, lower, softer, or faster than the human ear can easily discern. Bird songs and calls are usually within the same range as the human ear, but as we humans age, we tend to lose the ability to hear certain frequencies, particularly very high and very low frequencies. For example, I cannot hear high frequency bird songs and calls unless the bird is very close, even with my hearing aids. Fortunately, most warbler songs and calls are within the range that most people can hear readily. Pitch refers to the frequency of the note, how high or low it is. Usually, but not always, pitch changes during a song or call. Nathan Peplow identified 5 basic pitch patterns in bird songs. A song may have monotone elements. It may rise, known as an up slur, fall, known as a down slur, start low, rise, and then fall, an over slur, or start high, fall, and then rise again, an under slur. And hopefully you'll see some of these in the sonograms when we get to the bird descriptions. Nathan Peplow also identified 4 basic patterns of repetition and speed in a bird's song. If the notes are unique, but slow enough that you can count them as the bird sings, that is a phrase. Unique notes that are too fast to count are a warble. Interestingly enough, our warblers do not warble. If the notes are the same and slow enough to count, they constitute a series, whereas a trill consists of notes that are the same, but too fast to count. The speed and pitch of a song can change as the bird sings. Changes in speed occur when the length of the pause between the notes speeds up or slows down. Pitch can rise or fall as well. The top panel illustrates a series accelerating into a trill and a trill decelerating into a series. The bottom panel illustrates a song that is rising in pitch and one that is falling in pitch. Sometimes the repeated elements in a series consist of multiple notes. A couplet series often sounds like a 2-syllable word that is repeated, while a triplet series sounds like a repeated 3-syllable word. Complex series are common in warblers, and some help us define a mnemonic that can help tie the song to the species of warbler. And Nathan Peplow identified 7 basic tonal qualities, of which 3 are most prominently heard or seen in a sonogram of the warblers I will cover. The most common and basic sound is the whistle. As a whistle rises in pitch, it becomes thinner and more penetrating. Most warbler whistles are mellow sounding. Nearly all the warblers I will cover sing whistled songs. The next most common sound heard in warbler sounds is a buzz, but appears prominently only in the black-throated gray warbler and Townsend's warbler songs. Buzzes are essentially very fast trills where the individual notes are indistinguishable. Finally, stacked whistles sound nasal to the human ear. Many warbler songs have a nasal quality to them to varying degrees. The yellow-breasted chat is different in that its song can include ticks, which are unmusical whistles. As a whistle note becomes increasingly upslurred, it eventually becomes more like a tick, such as in trills. So now let's look at some specific warblers found in southwestern Idaho and their songs. Some of these warblers are seen primarily during migration in the Treasure Valley, but are regularly found during that period. The warblers that migrate through the Treasure Valley typically breed at higher elevations in this area. I grouped warblers with a common factor together. And to be honest, a lot of these songs I struggle with myself. They tend to turn to mush in my head. So if anybody can come up with a better hook other than the ones I have, other than the descriptions I've had, please put them in the chat so that others can see what you hear. And maybe that will work for them. So these first two warblers are ones that winter here in the Treasure Valley in similar habitat. Adult orange-crowned warblers look the same, so you can't tell the difference between males and females. These photos show different points of the bird to look for. Basically, an orange-crowned warbler is a rather plain, low-contrast, yellowish bird with subtle, blurry streaks on the underside. These streaks may or may not be very distinguishable. Orange-crowned warblers have a pale yellowish or white supercilium, a faint eye line, and a faint split eye ring. You may never see the orange crown. I've never seen it. I know some people that have, though. One subspecies that may appear here has brighter yellow undersides. However, most of our orange-crowned warblers are rather plain. If you see a plain warbler-like bird in dense shrubs, odds are you've just seen an orange crown. These birds are often at eye level or slightly above or below. Orange-crowned warblers are one of the two warblers that winter in southwest Idaho. I already said that. Look for them in dense shrubs in riparian areas. In summer, they can be found at somewhat higher elevations in or near forests with dense shrubby understories, often near water or wet areas, mostly because that's where most of the shrubs are. In breeding, orange-crowned warblers can be found in similar habitats as yellow warbler and Wilson's warblers. So the orange-crowned warbler's song, and this is a sonogram of it, is a whistled trill that usually slows a bit and drops in pitch towards the end. That slowing can make it seem as though you're hearing two sets of trills with little or no pause between. In some songs, there's a short rise in the middle. The trills are short, clear, and emphatic. The pitch and speed can waver, but nearly always falls towards the end. One mnemonic is chi-chi-chi-chi-chi-chi-chi-chi-tree. I didn't do that very well. So let's listen to the orange-crowned warbler. Can everybody hear that okay? Ah, good. It's always questionable as to whether you get the sound turned on properly with these things. The next bird is the yellow-rumped warbler. They're another common warbler that winters in southwest Idaho. We mostly have the Audubon's subspecies, so that's what I'll describe. In breeding plumage, the males in particular show high contrast between the yellow patches on their body and the rest of the body. In winter, that contrast fades. These birds have yellow patches on their crowns, throats, sides, and rump. That yellow patch on the rump is the most constant feature in all plumages and the source of the nickname butterbutt. The yellow in males tends to be much brighter than in females. Both sexes have streaky breasts, flanks, and backs, but they're more prominent in the male than the female. The males can also have black breasts. Both have white or pale eye arcs that may look more like an eye ring in the female. These birds are blue-gray above, white below, with large white tail spots edged in black. They give frequent chip calls. Look for yellow-rumped warblers in shrubs and trees, and they will fly-catch insects in summer. In the summer, look for them in open coniferous forests and forest edges. In winter, yellow-rumped warblers feed on waxy berries, so are commonly seen in Russian olives. Yellow-rumped warblers are common along the Boise River, Wilson Springs ponds, and similar settings, and more tolerant of human development, but more frequently seen in lower elevations in the winter than in the summer. So the yellow-rumped warbler's song is fairly short, complex, and steady-paced whistle with a slurred quality consisting of compressed phrases in 2 to 3 series with only small pitch variations. It has a slurred quality. The last section often fades out as if losing energy. So let's listen to the Yellow-rumped Warbler song. Is anybody else having an issue with screen freezing? If your screen froze, you might need to reboot. Hopefully not. Okay. Now, one of the bad things about these is sometimes bandwidth for an individual person results in the screen freezing. So hopefully that gets corrected for anybody that's having that problem here pretty quick. Okay. The next 3 warblers are associated with shrubby understories in or near open forests. Like many species of birds, the male and female Nashville warbler differ in that the female is not as bright as the male. Both sexes have a gray head with a white eye ring, yellow throat and undersides, and with a white patch of varying size between the legs. The male has higher contrast between the head, back, and undersides than the female. And the male may show a chestnut crown patch if you're lucky enough to catch it in the right position. Nashville warblers often flip their tails. Like nearly all warblers, these birds are active and quick foragers, often found in low to mid levels in brush and trees. In the Treasure Valley, you will typically find them in shrubby riparian areas during spring migration, whereas in their breeding areas at higher elevations, they can occur in shrubby understories of forests and similar habitats as the McGilvery warbler. One place to find Nashville warblers is in the Schoolhouse Gulch area of Garden Valley. I also have seen several Nashville warblers migrating through the Treasure Valley, although numbers seem to be down right now. They may have moved on. Nashville warbler's song consists of 2 series of couplets. The first series is slurred and somewhat slow. The second series is faster, even more slurred, and lower in pitch. There's little difference in tempo between the first and second series. A common mnemonic for the song is sippa, 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 tee, 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 tee. So let's listen to the Nashville warbler. The McGilvery's warbler, in contrast to the Nashville warbler, have thick white eye arcs, an olive back, a yellow belly, and undertail coverts. The males have a blue-gray hood, while females have gray to gray-brown hood. And notice the hood completely covers the head. The male also has wide black lores. The male shows high contrast between the head and the rest of the body, but relatively low contrast between the back and the undersides. They're both yellow. The back is a little duller yellow than the belly. The female is generally a low contrast bird. McGilvery's warblers are usually found skulking near the ground in brushy riparian areas, but males can sing from the tops of tall conifers, and individuals will forage well up in the trees often usually near the bole of the tree. They can twitch or appear to throw their tails sideways and flick their wings. Macs usually forage alone, and they respond readily to pitching, unlike many warblers. Macs typically breed at higher elevations of southwest Idaho, such as around the Whoop-em-Up area and Cascade Lake. The McGilvery's warblers sing a low, complex song of a burry series in 2 to 3 sections. The first series rises with a trill-like sound. The second and third series are lower and often slower and more rolling. The third series often rises at the very end. The sound has a high, vibrant, rolling quality. A couple of the mnemonics are tree, 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 jur, 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 or tree, 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 gee, gee, joo. I'm not a very good birdsong imitator. The Wilson's warbler is a small yellow bird with a somewhat beady eye. It has a tiny bill that is black above and pale below in the male, and overall pale in the female. Males have a black cap, and females can have a partial black cap or no obvious cap at all. The face is plain with a faint olive cheek patch and yellow supercilium that may be more obvious in the female. The tail is long and dark. Both sexes are boldly colored, but with low contrast, except between the cap and the rest of the body in the male. Their backs are a little bit darker than their bellies. The female can be mistaken for a yellow warbler, but she has a longer tail and more contrast between the crown and the face. Wilson's warblers often hover at the end of branches, picking out little insects, and cock their tails. They prefer dense shrubs and moist open forests, primarily in willow and alder thickets along streams. They're often found in similar habitats as McGilvery's warblers. They can be seen in lower elevations of southwest Idaho during migration, but typically breed in higher elevation conifer forests, usually in or near wet areas. The Wilson's warbler's song is fairly simple, consisting of a single series with long intervals, giving it a staccato quality. It grows slightly louder, but the pitch does not vary much. The notes are sharply enunciated and chattering, but sometimes more obviously whistled. The ending often speeds up or drops into a slightly lower, slower variation. So let's listen to the Wilson's warbler. These next two warblers are habitat specialists, so have more limited distribution in southwest Idaho. Male and female Virginia's warblers look alike. This species has a gray head and back, white eye ring, and yellow patches on the breast and undertail coverts. It has a chestnut crown patch that is often hidden. You'll notice it somewhat looks similar to the Nashville warbler, but it's in a different habitat, and there's much more extensive white on the belly than in the Nashville warbler. Other than the yellow patches, the Virginia's warbler is a low contrast bird, all gray above. As you might surmise from this description, and as you'll see from the song, Nashville warblers and Virginia warblers are closely related. The tail of the Virginia's warbler is always moving. It's either pumped downward like a phoebe or twirled when the bird is excited. Habitat is one of the better ways to tell Nashville and Virginia's warblers apart. Nashville warblers are widespread in southwest Idaho, occurring in a variety of brushy areas in open conifer forests. Virginia's warblers are more of a habitat specialist, found on brushy mountain slopes with scattered juniper or pine, and just barely found in southwest Idaho, more towards south central Idaho. You'll see them more frequently, for instance, if you go south of the Twin Falls area. They tend to forage in the interior of a tree, in the branches, and in low shrubs, and they may be found with black-throated gray warblers. So the Virginia warbler song consists of 2 to 4 clear series of couplets. It sounds similar to the Nashville warbler song, but is slower and lower in pitch, and often has 3 series instead of 2. The first series consists of evenly spaced introductory notes, followed by a series of faster notes or trill-like notes. The final series is short and may only be 1 note. Oops, went a little too far. The main impression of the black-throated gray warbler is that of a black and white, somewhat stripy bird, a high contrast bird. Males are darker than females. The crown is black with a wide supercilium and a black face. Look carefully for the yellow spot above the lores. The male has a black throat and the female a white throat with a black necklace. Both sexes have a gray back, white underparts, and black streaks on their sides. Black-throated warblers are most typically found in juniper woodlands, such as in the Owyhee Mountains. If you head up in the Owyhees, for instance, up Bachman Grade or out of Jordan Valley, you're sure to encounter black-throated gray warblers. The black-throated gray warbler song is rough and buzzy, rising and then falling rapidly at the end. The song gets louder as the song rises in pitch. Most notes are 2-syllabled. A common mnemonic is busy, busy, busy beaver, or busy, busy, busy beaver. The next 2 warblers breed down in the Treasure Valley near water. Common yellowthroats may have the greatest difference between males and females of the warblers in southwest Idaho. The females are easily overlooked given how flashy the males are with their black masks and with a white border above and bright yellow throat. The female has a dark face and pale yellow throat, but lacks any real hint of a mask. Like I said, both sexes do have that yellow throat and yellow undertail coverts. Other than the black mask on the male, both sexes are low contrast. The tail is relatively long and often cocked up like a wren. Yellow throats are usually found near water in shrubs, reeds, or cattails, and are typically seen at or below eye level. But occasionally they'll be above it. Look for yellow throats near rivers, streams, and ponds in southwest Idaho, often with yellow warblers in marsh wrens. Common yellowthroats have one of the more distinctive songs of the Southwest Idaho warblers. It usually consists of a rich whistled triplet series, often rendered as witchity, witchity. The bird may add or drop syllables, and there are regional dialects. This is one of the few warblers that I had no trouble identifying from its song. There often isn't much difference between male and female yellow warblers, but sometimes there is. Yellow warblers are overall bright yellow birds with a black face, or black eye rather, pale eye ring, and stout black bill. The black eye can look beady in that yellow face. Yellow warblers often have red streaks in the breast, most commonly in the males, but females may also have those streaks. Yellow warblers frequently pump their tails and are one of our most common warblers. Look for them in low trees and woodland edges, often in willows or wet areas. Yellow warblers are quite common along the Boise River and more tolerant of human development than many other warblers. Yellow warblers and Wilson's warblers can be found in similar habitats at higher elevations. And there are a lot of yellow warblers around right now. The yellow warbler's song consists of sweet, clear whistles, typically with a quick stutter phrase before the final rising or descending note. There's much variation in the songs, but two common patterns are found. A common mnemonic for the yellow warbler is sweet, 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 a little more sweet, or sweet, 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 me, me too. This is another warbler that I had no trouble recognizing the song. If the black-throated gray warbler is a black and white bird, the Townsend warbler is a black and yellow high-crest bird. Both sexes have a yellow face with a dark crown, dark ear patch, and yellow under eye arc. The males have a black throat bordered by yellow, while the females have a yellow throat. The yellow extends into the breast on both. Look also for black streaks on the sides and dark olive green backs and white wing bars. Those wing bars really stand out. The belly, undertail coverts, and tail are white. Undertail, actually. Townsend's warblers are usually found in mixed conifer forests, usually with a pine component, and similar habitat as Steller's jays, chickadees, and kinglets. The bird usually forages and sings from the upper part of the tree, so it's one of those birds that can give you warbler neck. Its foraging behavior is very, very similar to that of chickadees and kinglets. So that's one way to tell this bird from the black-throated gray warbler. One is black and white with small yellow spots. The other one is black and yellow. So the Townsend's warbler song consists of a mix of clear and buzzy elements. The first series consists of clear elements, usually at the same pitch, followed by a buzz and ending with an abrupt down-slurred note. The song can sound similar to a black-throated gray warbler, but the habitat is completely different, mixed conifer versus juniper woodland. The song is slower and higher pitched than a black-throated gray song. A mnemonic is way, way, way up high. The yellow-breasted chat used to be considered a warbler, but recently was moved into its own genus and family. However, older field guides may list the chat with the warblers, so I'm covering him in this lesson. Male and female chats look alike. The birds have a large, heavy bill, extensive bright yellow in the throat and breast, and white belly and undertail coverts, and a long gray tail. Along with that bright yellow throat and breast, chats have white goggles and black lores. Chats prefer to skulk in dense shrubs, often near water, and frequently with yellow warblers. Although when they're singing on territory, they may be seen much higher in a tree. And they have a little display flight that they may do that is really distinctive. Look for chats along the upper parts of the Boise River and densely shrubby streams, such as found throughout the Boise foothills. For instance, the Spring Valley Creek Trail in Avamore has lots of chats. And lately, the Lytle Gulch in Foot Park, the other day, I think we counted 14 chats in there. Chat songs are loud, highly variable sounds with long pauses, giving the song a distinctive rhythm with variable content. They consist of a combination of rattles, whistles, clicks, and other sounds that may sound harsh to us. And the yellow-breasted chat songs can contain imitations of other birds. This is just an example of a yellow chat. There's a lot of variation in how chats sound, but there'll be some distinct notes that you'll hear that tell you you're listening to a chat. Alrighty, that's all the species accounts. Are there any species that people want me to go back and review before we move into the quiz birds? I don't see anything in the chat requesting more review. So what I'll do for the quiz birds is I'm going to show you a slide. These are all male birds, simply because the males are easier to identify, and this isn't supposed to be a hard test. You can participate in the quiz as you would like. If you don't know what a bird is, you can go ahead and skip it. After each bird, I will tell you what it is supposed to be so you can kind of grade yourself. And we will cover all 11 birds. Sorry. So here's our first quiz bird, and I'll also describe the birds that will hopefully give you some clues. This is a low contrast, generally yellowish bird, very plain looking. Sometimes you can see a bit of orange in the crown, but usually you can't. So go ahead and type in what you think this bird is in the chat box. It looks like everybody who responded got it right. This is an orange-crowned warbler. Okay, this next bird has a gray head, white eye ring, yellow in the breast, belly, and undertail coverts, and a white patch between the legs. Otherwise, it's got a kind of a yellowy gray back. And most of you who responded got this correct. This is a Nashville warbler. Yellow-breasted chat has the goggles, a bigger bill. The breast yellow is in the breast and the upper part of the belly, but then it's white beyond that. The Nashville warbler, oops, sorry. The Nashville warbler has more white in the belly. Or Virginia warbler, I'm sorry. Next bird. We have a bird with a black mask, white above that mask, a yellow throat and breast. It's typically found in marshes. Tends to cock its tail up like a wren, and has a very distinctive witchety, witchety, witchety song. Looks like everyone got this one. Yes, it is a common yellow throat. Here's our next bird. He's pretty much an all yellow bird with a beady eye and a black cap. The back is a little bit darker than the breast and belly. And you guys are doing great. Yes, this is a Wilson's warbler. Here's our next bird. This bird has a gray head, a white eye ring, gray back and tail, yellow undertail coverts, yellow in the breast, but most of the underparts are white. It's typically found in juniper. Or typically found in pinyon juniper. Barely comes into our part of Idaho. Correct. This is a Virginia's warbler. Here's quiz bird 6. This bird has a dark hood, white eye arcs, and yellow undersides, including the undertail coverts. The back rather, sorry, is kind of a brownish yellow. And it has a kind of a heavy bill. Likes to hang out near streams where it skulks. Everyone got this one correct. The McGilvery's warbler. Here's our next bird. It's basically an all yellow bird with a beady eye and some red streaking in the breast and flanks. Very common along the Boise River. Alrighty, yep, you guys are doing great. Yellow warbler. Of course, he's kind of easy, I think. Here's our next bird. It's one of the 2 warblers that tends to winter here. It can be frequently seen in the winter in Russian olives. It has yellow on the crown, a yellow throat, yellow on the sides, black breast, white tail spots, and a yellow rump patch. Correct. This is a yellow rumped warbler. Quiz bird 9. This is basically a black and white bird with a black cap, black face, black throat, white supercilium, white under the eye, and a little yellow spot on the lores. And he's one of those that's found in juniper. Very good. This is a black-throated gray warbler. We do occasionally get black and white warblers, but they're pretty much a rare bird in our part of the world. So, but I can understand why you might think this was a black and white warbler, because it looks fairly similar. Here's a black and yellow bird. Yellow over the eye, black cap, black face mask, or black face, yellow under eye arcs, black streaks on the side. The yellow extends into the breast. It has 2 white wing bars, typically found higher up in the treetops of conifers. Very good. You guys are acing this. This is indeed the Townsend's warbler. Here's our last quiz bird. It's got white goggles, bright yellow throat and breast. The rest of the under part of the body is white. It's a long tail, likes to hang out in riparian areas. Excellent. The yellow-breasted chat. So that's it for our quiz birds. I have some additional resources in case you are interested. What the heck is going on here? Go away. So some additional resources include the following. The Warbler Guide. This is a book and an app. The book describes each warbler species. Come here. It describes 4 species. It provides distinctive views, comparison species, and aging and sexing clues. It describes the different song types and similar songs from the species. The app allows the user to examine warblers from a variety of angles, including from the bottom. There's a nice little 3D function on it to where you can like turn the bird around and look at it from many different angles, as well as just basic standard views. The Peterson Field Guide to Bird Sounds of Western North America. This provides sonograms of a variety of song types as well as calls, which we did not cover. You can link to the recordings of the different songs and calls shown via www.petersonbirdsounds.com. That links to the Macaulay Library of Bird Sounds through the Bird Academy at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. You type in the species you want to explore in the search box. And then in All About Birds at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology links you to photos, recordings, audios, and descriptions of the birds. As usual, you type in the bird of interest in the search box to get there. And then the Crossley Guide to Western Birds provides a variety of photos of the birds in different poses against a backdrop of the typical habitat. So are there any questions? No questions? I can't believe I did that good a job. Which warblers will we see at Avamore? It's hard to say for sure. We'll definitely see chats, and we should see and hear yellow warblers. Depending on what's happening, we could see Nashville warblers. If we're lucky, we might see a Townsend's migrating through. See what else do I think of? Oh, could get yellow throats, might get orange crowns. Might be Avamore might be a little bit late for Nashville's and McGilvery's, and Wilson's warblers. We definitely won't see Virginia's or black-throated gray, since those are in the juniper. Up at Garden Valley, that's where we should pick up Nashville's and hopefully Max. Well, so we should get yellow warblers. Less likely to get the common yellowthroat because we're not going to be in the right habitat, but could get a lot of those birds that like forests and brushy understories. Well, like I say, there's still some slots left for Garden Valley, so please sign up. That is this Saturday. We will be meeting fairly early because it's a bit of a drive to get up there, and we will be hiking. All right. Well, thank you very much, and everybody have a good evening.